Dave's entrepreneurial journey began in his early 20s when he sold parts of Australia's most beloved sporting venue, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, a little bit of an entrepreneurial foray there. Since then, he's had business experiences spanned from franchising retail clothing stores to founding one of Australia's most trusted digital agencies, Melbourne SEO Services. In 2016, he successfully systemised himself out of that business, hiring a CEO and stepping back from the daily operations. Through the process, he became a systems devotee, founding SYSTEMology. And today, his mission is to free all business owners worldwide from the daily operations of running their business. To achieve this, Dave spends most of his time supporting the growing community of certified systemologists as they help business owners implement the systemology frameworks. He also delivers workshops, keynotes, addresses, and hosts his own popular podcast, Business Processes Simplified. And also, I've just noticed, which I only just found out then, so very generously, David has provided us with books for each of you guys as a gift. So I wanted to say thank you very much, Dave. I really, really appreciate that gesture. Thank you. And without any further ado, over to let's a massive round of applause for Dave Jenyns. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you. As Sean mentioned a few years ago, it didn't quite line up that I got to attend one of these events live, and I bet one of these days we are going to do one in person. Today, we've got a Zoom in, and we've got quite a bit of material that I'd love to cover with you. And we've got some limited time. Some of the things that I'll probably cover, I could probably normally talk about for a whole day. So I'm going to jump straight into it. I think I'm maybe a little bit unique in a lot of business groups that I speak to, in that I get excited by systems and processes. It's something that it's not like I enjoy documenting processes and creating checklists and writing out detailed instruction plans. As a business owner, I've fallen in love with the result of what great systems can bring. And I know with the title of this particular event, I'm going to feel right at home in this particular room. We all know how important systems are. They help you scale, they help you be more efficient, run more profitably. You get better outcomes for clients, you get better outcomes for your team, you get better outcomes for your partners. It helps you to build value and create a saleable asset. These days, whenever I chat with a business owner, I don't think we ever come to the conclusion that systems and processes aren't important. Generally, though, they're very rarely urgent. And that's a big part of the work that I want to try and help you with, and maybe break down some common misconceptions you have around what it takes to build a systemized business, and help you see that even if you might not see yourself as a systems person, or maybe you haven't had a systemized business in the past, that doesn't mean that you can't do this right now inside your business. So we'll overcome some of those as I go through the presentation. And my goal here really is just to inspire you with what is possible from systemization and show you perhaps a better way. Now, a lot of what I'm going to cover is in the SYSTEMology book, which you'll get access to. So I'll just share my slide deck here, and some of the things I can actually move through a little bit quicker because I know you've got a copy of the book. There's no need for me to go through my story. Sean gave you a little bit of an introduction. It's mentioned in the book. I've got plenty of videos online that talk about that. The short version is I've started, systemised, scaled, and sold 3 businesses. One was a rock and roll clothing music store, one was a video production business, and another was a digital agency. And at the end of that last business, the digital agency, I fell out of love with that work. And I was thinking about, well, what am I going to start to work on next? And I saw this area around systems and processes that I felt was very poorly addressed. I feel like systems and processes, at least how to get them down when you're first getting started, is something that was, there's not a huge amount of material on it. Yes, there's a lot of books like E-Myth and Scaling Up and Traction and Work the System and Built to Sell, where they build the case for systems, but there's actually very little work when it comes to and how do I do it? Where do I get started? What are the first few systems I need to document? How do I get my team on board? What are the minimum number of systems that will create the outcome that I'm looking for? So that's what I went to work on. I had a vision of freeing all business owners worldwide from the day-to-day operations. And I wanted to develop a system that would help you extract, organize, and optimize best practice. That's what I've been working on for the past 6 years, basically taking this picture that I had in my head and then bringing it to reality. And I've been in the fortunate situation where my work has connected really well with a lot of business owners, and we've got some really extraordinary results as well. One story that I love, just recently I interviewed this guy. His name's Ryan Stannard. He runs a company called Stannard Homes, and they're a building company out of Adelaide. And his story, and I'll share a range of links with Sean that he can share out to the group after this so you can dig into the actual interview with him. But his story isolates or identifies a really big breakthrough that I've had in just the past couple of years when it comes to systemisation and what it takes. Ryan is a self-confessed high school dropout. He's built this $15 million building company out of Adelaide, and it's powered by rock solid systems. The big insight that he and I have had is this idea of the systems champion, and who is the person that really drives this initiative forward, keeps it front and center, and ensures it gets done. Because again, it's important, but it's very rarely urgent. So it's very easy for other priorities to step in, and we put systemisation and documenting process on the back burner. But of all of the successful companies that I've worked with, the common element that seems to come through is they've all identified a systems champion. And for Ryan, it was his daughter, actually. She came on board as an interior designer. She wanted to learn the craft of interior design, worked under their lead interior designer who, after about 4 months, actually resigned. Within those 4 months, though, Erin was recording and capturing what she was doing. She was learning under that head interior designer and was translating those into processes. It was her way of learning. And then Ryan intuitively spotted this and said, you know what? How about you go and do this with all of the key team members in the organization? Meet with them, find out their critical processes, record them doing the work, get it documented, organize it into a central location. And fast forward 18 months down the road, and Ryan's just completely transformed his business. And Erin, being the systems champion now, he said is probably one of the most knowledgeable team members in the organization because she has such great visibility into the way that everything's done. And he's now grooming Erin to be the general manager. Now, again, this is not an isolated instance. I see this idea of a systems champion just keep surfacing up, someone who can kind of keep driving it forward. And for the business owner, it can create extraordinary outcomes. Ryan, just on the Christmas past, ended up taking 7 weeks off over the Christmas period, and the business continued to grow and operate, and they continued to deliver work for clients. So that's really the outcome that we're working towards. And I've now been interviewing systems champions, business owners, and capturing these stories to build up a body of work to really get down to what is it between those that make it work and those who don't. And we'll cover some of that today. We're going to actually cover 3 things. We're going to talk about what is systemology, and we'll go through the 7 stages. Fortunately, we can fly through that because you also have a copy of the book to reference. We'll talk a little bit about changing your identity, because while you might not be the person doing the documentation, you need to lead this initiative as the business owner. You have to let the team know that this is important and you're putting time, money, and resources behind it. And so we need to talk a little bit about how to make sure that you're going to stick with it long enough to get the result you're after. We'll talk a little bit about the systems champion towards the end, because building the freedom business that you're looking to build, really, you're going to need to assemble the right people around you. There is no way to build the business of your dreams without systems and processes. And this is not something that you can just keep putting off, because it doesn't get any easier. The more team members that you have, the more you start to grow, the harder it becomes to insert systems culture back into the DNA of the business further down the line. So it's actually never going to be easier than it is right today to start systemizing your business. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we move through today. So if we start off firstly, though, really thinking about what systemology is and what systems thinking is, I loved the title that Sean's given this particular event as Business as a System, because that's really the way that I think about business. It's very similar to the human body. The human body is a system. The human body has subsystems: the cardiovascular system, respiratory system, skeletal system. Now, think about the health of your body. If one of those subsystems is unhealthy, what happens to the overall health of the human body? It starts to pull down the overall health. All subsystems need to be running optimally to get an optimal result. What happens if one of these subsystems fails? It brings down potentially the entire human body. You can die if some of these subsystems aren't working and doing what they're supposed to. Now, the business, your business, is the same. Your business is a system. There are subsystems within that larger system of the business. And each of those subsystems has a particular responsibility of what it needs to deliver to the business to make sure that it runs healthily. Marketing's job, what is it? It's to generate leads for the business. Sales job, what's the job of sales? It's to convert those leads. Operations or client fulfillment is about delivery of the product or service. Finance is about managing the money into and out of the business. Oftentimes, a business owner might be strong in one or two of these areas. Maybe they're a great salesperson. Maybe they're a great technician, and they carry the load while some of the other departments aren't performing. Now, that can work only so long. And if you really want to get great results, all departments need to be firing. So your business is a system. The theme of this event is correct. I know we're on the same page with that, so we can dive into more about, well, what are the steps that you need to go through to make this happen? So I wrote the book to fulfill the need, as I said, of needing a system to systemize business. And it's a 7-step process. Many of you also are going to be able to dive into some of these stages with Rob Morgan. I know he's got a session a little bit later. He's one of our systemologists. In fact, he's a master systemologist and actually leads our community of systemologists. So you're in very safe hands with Rob, and he will take you through some of the key stages to get you started. I'm going to walk you through all 7 reasonably quickly so that we can really focus more on the identity and the systems champion, because while you need to understand the 7 stages of systemology, you aren't going to need to do every little piece. That's the role of the systems champion, to work alongside you to make this happen. So the first stage in systemology is to just answer the question, how many systems do you need to document at the start? Where do you start? What are the first 10 to 15 systems that you need to document? There is an infinite number of things you could document, but what are you going to start with? Something I like to always say is that just because you don't document something doesn't mean it's going to magically stop happening. So all we're really looking at doing is capturing your current best practice on a select number of systems and processes that we know are critical to the business. It's very easy to get overwhelmed with what could be documented, but it's just applying the 80-20 rule. The worksheet that you'll end up working through is called the critical client flow. This is what I cover in the first chapter of the book. And its purpose is to identify and uncover those systems. Oftentimes, a lot of people, when they think about systemisation, they're trying to get things just right and design the perfect system, when the reality is the best systems that you have are the ones that you're already doing currently. So that doesn't have to be world class. You just want to start doing things consistently. So the exercise, you identify your dream client, the person who wants to pay your advertised prices, refer friends and family, and is a pleasure to deal with. We'll focus in on a primary product or service. And then all we do is we map the linear flow that your prospect and then client goes through to deliver that product or service. There's a couple of rules to the critical client flow. Firstly, you only capture what you're currently doing, not what you would like to be doing. It's okay if there are gaps in this. Just see that as a little bit of a signal. Also, you can only write a few words in these boxes. That's done by design. We're not getting into detail just yet. You want a high level capture how you deliver that core product or service. Just a few words in each box about what you're currently doing. This sets you on the path of making it possible for your business to deliver your core product or service without any dependency on you or any other key team member. Most business owners haven't experienced that. A lot of business owners are technicians. They know how to do the work. They can deliver fantastic widgets. But if they're away on holiday, things fall off and don't get completed. So that's why I always focus on the critical client flow first, because if we can do this and the business can make money without you, then you can actually solve just about any other problem in business. Cash flow and money is the great equalizer. We can go hire someone to solve other problems, but we got to first make sure that the money can make, or the business can make money consistently without key person dependency. Again, Rob will take you through that exercise, so we don't need to go into it in great detail. The next step is about whom on your team knows how to do those tasks. We identify 10 to 15 systems in step number 1. Step number 2, who on the team knows how to do those tasks? It doesn't have to be the best. It's just who does it the best on your team. So Sally might issue out invoices. Great. Well, how is Sally doing it? She does it to a good standard. Okay, Jenny answers the telephone. Okay, well, how does Jenny answer the phone and handle that inquiry and qualify it and get it into your CRM and send it over to your salesperson? It doesn't have to be the best first off. And McDonald's is a great example of that. McDonald's isn't the best at making hamburgers. McDonald's is just consistent. Your clients crave consistency. So if you can figure out who on your team does things to a good standard, capture what it is that they're doing and making it repeatable, bring everybody up to that standard, tremendous wins can be gained just from doing that, even before we get to the optimize phase. So this sprint is really easy. It's just creating what we call a systems assign sheet. It's just a work plan, a sprint to define what you're going to document and capture over a 90-day period. So if step number 1, we identify the 10 to 15 systems. Step number 2, then we figure out who on the team knows how to do it. And we add a little bit of extra detail so when it comes time to documentation, we're clear. Step number 3 is we extract. We then need to get that knowledge out of the head of those key team members. This, as I've already hinted, is a 2-person job. That's where the systems champion comes in. Oftentimes there's the knowledgeable worker and then there's this systems champion. You're busy, your best team members are busy, and oftentimes if you tell them, hey, I want you to document your process, they say, okay, great, I'll put it on my to-do list and I'll get to it when I've got time. But they never have time. Just like you, they're busy. It's important, not urgent. They don't get to it. So making it a 2-person job, the person who's the knowledgeable worker can do the thing. The systems champion records them doing the thing. And then it's the systems champion's job to then get it documented and organized and saved into a central location. So you just got to start to rewire a little bit about what you think a system is. A system doesn't need to be some epic long war and peace manual that explains every single variation and, oh, if the client picks blue widgets, we do it this way. If they pick red widgets, they do it that way. If it's on a rainy day, it looks like this. If it's a wet day, it looks like that. Like, you just simplify, capture the most probable, record it as a video, and then the secret is to get your systems champion to then take those videos and then turn them into documented procedures. These are just a few of the systems champions that I've worked with that have been in a lot of the organizations that have had really great success. Now, this process has just got infinitely easier. It used to be worth it for a systems champion to watch these videos and manually record and write out those steps. ChatGPT has now made this so much easier. Transcribe those videos, feed the transcripts into ChatGPT, tell it to draft a process, take that drafted process, drop it into System Hub or wherever you're storing your systems, and then get your systems champion to polish it up. It was worth it before. Now you can do it in 1/5 of the time. There is no excuse not to get this done. It is so easy these days. And then you just want to organize that knowledge into a central location. Simple is best here. Simple scales, complex fails. If something's working for you already, that's fine. You can stick with it. You don't need fancy software. You don't need to just overcomplicate it. Have a central location where you store all of this knowledge and you come up with a naming convention and how you organize it. And then the trick is to make sure whenever someone is assigned a task, whenever they're about to do something or meet with a client or get some equipment ready, you're never more than 1 click away from the how-to document. If they're assigned a task in project management platform, in the description, it links to the system. If you're using jobs management system because you've got team members out in the field, you link to it when that job is assigned. If you've got tradespeople meeting with a client, put it in the description of the task, that like the calendar invite. If you've got physical equipment, create a QR code, stick a QR code onto the equipment that can be scanned on the phone that will jump you straight to the how-to doc. The reason you do this is so that it removes the, oh, but I didn't know. I didn't realize we had to do it that way. No one ever showed me how to do that. I didn't think that step number 3 applied to me. What you're doing is you're saying to everybody, here is the way that we do things here. I don't care if you've got the system open or not, if you're doing it perfectly. But if you're not doing it perfectly, then you need to have the system open. And you follow the process because that's the way that we do things here. And that central location becomes a brain for the business. Staff might come and go. And yes, you can say that staff are really, really important in your business, and they are. I think process is more important. Process is what you own. Process is how you do what you do. It's the most valuable asset in your business. Step number 5 is we've got to get your team on board. There will be some resistance up front, especially if you've got an existing team. What happens at a lot of events like these, you probably come along to one of Sean's events and you get all pumped up and you've got a big long to-do list and a bunch of ideas. You'll hear my talk and you'll get so excited about systems, you'll be just about jumping out of your seat. You'll go back to work on Monday and you're going to try and share that enthusiasm with the team. The team is going to roll their eyes and go, Ben's just been to one of Sean's events. I've seen this before. All we got to do is just grin and bear it for the next 2 weeks. He'll forget about it. Things will go back to the way it was. And I don't have to worry about this. This systems thing won't stick. All of that resistance happens up front. Again, another reason why the systems champion is so key. We've got to make sure that these ideas that you get at Sean's event stick. And we have to overcome the resistance, because that resistance is with your existing team members that say, why do we have to change? We've always done it this way. Why do I have to document? Should I be worried that you're trying to document my tasks? Does that mean you're trying to get rid of my job? Do I have some sort of job security issue here? Should I be concerned? Like, you're going to have to overcome some of these things. The good news is, and there are some strategies Rob can share with you to help navigate through this. The good news is, though, you get on the other side and you build a systems culture, it actually gets a lot easier. Every new team member, once you've got this down, will go through your recruitment and your onboarding procedure. And when they come in on your onboarding procedure, they will learn the way that you do things. And that's all they ever know. There's no resistance from someone if that's all they ever know. And in your position description and job ads, you might link to systems and processes that the person will be completing as part of the recruitment process, so they know right up front you're a systems-driven organization and you have a way of doing things. And you will then repel those people away that won't fit in with that culture. And then when they start with you, you'll train them. And the aim of the game with those systems and processes is to get them as productive as possible in the shortest amount of time. So getting this integration piece, getting staff buy-in and building a systems culture is key to making this work. It's arguably one of the most important aspects. If systems is one of the least addressed areas of business, especially for small business, getting staff buy-in and building staff culture around systems is probably the least addressed area of the least addressed area. And that's really where the rubber hits the road. You need to work on, how do you keep it front and center? How do you celebrate system wins? How do you give out awards and showcase new systems? How do you have a systems culture where rather than blaming the individual, you blame the system? It's not the team member's fault if they followed the system. It's the system's fault. Great. Okay. Well, if every problem in business is a systems problem, let's go to work on the system. And that brings us to step number 6, which is scale. Scale, if in step number 1, we identified the first 10 to 15 systems you're going to work on, then in the scale stage, what are the other systems required to scale and grow your business? Beyond attracting new clients, selling them, delivering your core products and services, you're probably going to need some systems around finance, HR, management. Now, the way that I think about this is I call it minimum viable systems. This is the tipping point. You need systems to touch every aspect of your business, every department. For the minimum viable systems, you effectively want to pick between 7 to 10 essential systems in each department. Imagine each department has a role to fill in your business. Marketing's job is to deliver the leads, okay? Well, what are the 7 to 10 systems in the marketing department that help to ensure that the marketing department is delivering on that promise? And remember, just because you don't systemize something doesn't mean it's going to magically stop happening. Just what things are essential. And you work around your organization, and then that's when you achieve what I call MVS, minimum viable systems. It's the tipping point. It's when that systems culture really starts to take hold. And then the last step is optimization. And it's a little bit counterintuitive. It's what makes systemology different from a lot of the methodologies that come before it, like Lean and Six Sigma and other process improvement methodologies. They focus on improving process. A lot of small business hasn't yet captured a process. There's nothing to improve. Tremendous wins can be gained just by making your business repeatable. So we don't optimize till we get to the last stage. The last stage, we install a dashboard and we think about what are the KPIs and outcomes that we want. And we remember that every problem in business is a systems problem. So if you don't have enough leads, go to work on your lead generation systems. If you're having trouble with your sales and you need to improve your conversion, go to work on your sales systems. If you're having issues with your clients and managing expectations, maybe you need to work on your onboarding systems. Every system or every problem in business is a systems problem. So once you get to this level, you actually become very dashboard driven and you let the KPIs guide what parts of business you need to work on. This is an area, this last stage as well, that I've been doing most thinking, particularly over the last 12 months, with all of the changes that are happening with AI. Because when it comes to optimization and integrating AI into what you're doing, there's also a tremendous opportunity. AI, for the first time, enables you to deliver faster, cheaper, better outcomes. Normally, you'd only be able to pick two of them, but you couldn't have faster, cheaper, and better. Now with AI, you can. So this optimization phase has a lot to do with rebuilding process, incorporating AI in place. But we've gone through the 7 stages: define, assign, extract, organize, integrate, scale, and optimize. I understand if this is the first time that you're hearing this, that's a lot to take in all at once. I'm sure you'll get access to these recordings. You'll have a copy of the book. You'll be able to work with Rob, the systemologist, to really help you out. The whole idea, though, is to build the freedom business. You can't build a profitable, scalable business that removes key person dependency without systems. This is an essential part of this. You're building a little money machine that works without you. And that's really what we're all about. Most business owners never get to this stage. They are the technician. Michael Gerber said it best. He said, business owners have an entrepreneurial seizure. It's the technician, it's the hairdresser who goes, I cut hair day in and day out and I'm working for this joker. How about I go run my own business because I can cut hair? And then they realize, hang on, there's a completely different skill set to cutting hair versus running a business that cuts hair. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. So what we're talking about, the master skill of business, is the ability to develop effective systems. If you can develop effective systems, all you're doing is you're setting a standard and saying, here's how things they need to be done. It's how you transfer knowledge. It's the more that I do this, the more obvious to me it becomes. And I think you'll be the same as you kind of, I mean, you're already down this rabbit hole at Sean's event. This whole event is about systems. So we just need to think about how do we start to reshape the way that you think about systems? Because I can teach you the method, I can let you know how important it is, but depending on what's stopping this happening in your business, you already know systems are important. Why haven't you systemized to the level that you would like it? Maybe you think, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough resources. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to systemize. I don't like systemizing. Oftentimes, there's a lot of this head trash that goes on that gets in the way of you getting it done when you know it's critically important. It's important. It's just very rarely urgent. We need to move that. We need to change your belief system. You need to start to think, I am the owner of a systems-driven business. You need to believe that you get a greater ROI on your time and effort to document process than either not doing something or reinvesting that time elsewhere. When Michael Gerber said, work on your business, not in your business, what he really meant was work on your systems, not doing the technical work. Systems are working on your business. Your business isn't broken. Oftentimes, you can just get wins by making it repeatable. I believe that every problem in business is a systems problem. I believe that you can get extraordinary results by putting regular team members into well-designed systems. I believe that the value that the business gets from creating these systems is worth it. You need to believe that because it will take time, money, and effort. If you believe it, then you'll start to take the right actions. How would you act if you believed that the financial benefit of great systems far exceeds the cost of getting them documented and implemented? If you believed that the financial benefit was greater than what it costs to get them into place? What if you believed that business systems are the most valuable asset? How would you act? If you believed that the value in a business is in their systems, how would you act? I need you to believe it because you're going to have to lead this. You don't have to do it. You've just got to lead it. And you've got to show the team that we are putting time, energy, and resources into this, and you are supporting this, and you have anointed a systems champion, and we are doing this. That's your job as the leader. When you do that, something will change inside you. I remember working with this guy, Dave Porter from Portavac. They clean roofing gutters. They do commercial and residential. Like they hop up on the roofs and they use these vacuums to vacuum all of the rubbish out of the gutters. And when they're up there, they do a roofing report. And then they send that off to the client and say, hey, we can do these roofing repairs. So Dave Porter had read the E-Myth and he knew systems were important, but he just couldn't quite make it to work. Then he read SYSTEMology and then he instantly got it. We started off by identifying Kane, who became his systems champion. Kane was initially out in the field working with tradespeople, getting it done, decided he didn't really like that role, came back to head office, and they were trying to find a new role for him. And they said, well, how about you be this systems champion? We started off and we mapped the critical client flow with him. We filled out the systems assign sheet and got very clear on what systems we were capturing over the course of a 90-day period. Kane then met with the key team members and recorded what they were doing and saved it into a central location. He even went out into the field wearing a GoPro and followed their top tradesperson around for the day, recorded him setting up the equipment, speaking to clients, climbing up on the roof, getting the truck ready, and he just made a truckload of little short videos. Those videos, then he watched them and pulled out the key steps. Those steps then became version number 1 of the system. Now, this is before ChatGPT. I've already told you it's even easier now. And then he continued to work towards minimum viable systems. Now, they've had some extraordinary outcomes and growth from going through this, but Dave said there was a turning point for him when something changed inside of him. One night, one of the trucks got returned to the office. The person put the keys back on the corkboard and went home. Dave looked at the truck and realized it was out of fuel. The equipment needed to be restocked. It was dirty. It wasn't going to be ready for tomorrow. Now, there's a follow-on effect of it not being ready in the morning. They have to prepare it. That pushes back start times. That means they don't meet client jobs when they need to, and the whole day runs late. It's really important to have them ready to go the night before. Normally, what Dave would do is that next morning he'd call a team meeting, he'd get everybody together, and he'd yell at them. And they say, we can't do it like this. I need you guys to be better. I need the trucks ready. They need to be cleaned. You do this again, and you'll start losing shifts. I've told you 1,000 times this needs to be better. That's how he would normally do it. But something had changed inside Dave. As he went through this process, he realized, hang on, there's a problem in my business. That means it's a systems problem. So instead, what he did was he wrote out a little checklist, put it on a clipboard that hangs next to the corkboard where the keys get put down. The next morning, he calls a team meeting and says, hey, everybody, moving forward, before you put the keys on the corkboard, I need you to go through this checklist. Make sure the car is filled with fuel. Make sure it's cleaned. Make sure you've restocked it with the equipment. And you're not allowed to put the keys back on the corkboard until you've gone through and checked this checklist off. He went to work on the system, and it made it infinitely easier to performance manage team members if they don't follow the system, because it's like, hey, this is your job. We've outlined the expectation. I've told you what to do. Here it is. Like, if you do that again, 3 strikes and you're out. He fixed the problem like that. He fixed it at the system level. And he did it because something changed in him. He started to realize how important systems are. That's the bit that we have to get with you. I know you've got a full day with Sean over this event, and I think we can lock in on that. But it comes down to you. There needs to be a level of commitment. You need to be committed to getting this result. You need to understand that you can't build the business of your dreams without this. You need to understand that putting this off, it's not going to get any easier. It's the easiest that it'll ever be right now. And it has never been easier in the history of business to systemize your business than right now because of all of the AI tools. You've got to start this and keep going until you build a systems culture and the team says, this is how we do things here, because that's when all of the magic and the reward and the effort comes for that work. So we move into the final bit, which, as I said, is a new discovery for me and something that I'll be writing the topic of my next book on, is this role of the systems champion. Who owns the process in your organization? Is it you? Is the operations manager? Is it staff? Is it department heads? As I said, a lot of them just don't have capacity. So recently I've been interviewing a bunch of the clients, and that's where this whole idea of the systems champion came up. My preferred method now is to find, it's like a junior apprentice. Oftentimes the best systems champion is, it's the junior person who knows how to do the technical work. It's the junior mechanic, the junior lawyer, the junior accountant, the junior design person, like whatever the junior person is, interior design. And you're giving them a gift. They're hungry. They know how to do the technical work. And then you're actually teaching them how to run a business that does that technical work. What a magnificent gift to give them, because most people only ever understand the technical work. So finding that person and understanding that they maybe one day could evolve into being the general manager or the operations manager. They may or may not. The systems champion you have today might not be the same systems champion that you have in 6 or 12 months or 24 months. As long as you've got someone, and that can change over time, you just have to find someone to start. Now, as part of that work I was doing, I interviewed a bunch of systems champions, and then I took all of their responses, transcribed it, fed it into ChatGPT, and asked ChatGPT, based on all of these interviews I've had with systems champions, can you tell me what the top common qualities amongst them are? And the reason I did that is so you can start to identify who is the right systems champion. Now, you might have someone on staff and they could be perfect for the role, or you might need to recruit for this role. You're looking for someone who is naturally organized and systems driven, who can adapt and learn quickly, detail oriented, have strong communication skills, is great at connecting with people, and they're curious and they want to learn more, and they're flexible and they've got this passion for improvement. We're looking for those qualities in an individual, because that's what makes a great systems champion. And there's a spectrum here of whom are we going to get to fulfill this role. You could get a systems champion offshore who might be less skilled, lower cost, working virtually, maybe even part-time, but they're going to require a lot of direction. Or at the other end of the spectrum, you pay more and you get a higher quality person to do the role, maybe with more skill. Maybe they're local, maybe they're full-time, maybe they're part-time. You just need someone who's going to own this and work on it. I think a great place to get started, depending on the size of your business, is a return to work mum or dad. This becomes a part-time role, 20 hours per week. Maybe that person has had some corporate experience, so maybe they've already had some exposure to systems and processes. But now they're trying to get back into the workforce and they prioritize flexibility over pay. And you give them this little mission for the next 90 days, I want you to document the critical client flow. And maybe you work in sprints with them. That's one way to go, a great way to start. Or you can look offshore and you get an offshore VA. And again, sometimes they might require a little bit more direction, but you just have to start with something. Understanding that the VA you have today or the systems champion might not be the one that you have further down the line. But they're documenting process and that asset stays with you. So you're just constantly improving that asset. And you have to figure out what's going to suit you best. I'll share a link here. It's just systemology.com/BSA/ description. And again, I'll get these slides and things over to Sean and the team. That's a position description for a systems champion. So that might help you to define the work and the responsibilities of that person. Who knows? Maybe you've got this person on staff already and this is just a new role. But if that's the case, you've got to make sure that they have capacity. There's no point in giving this to someone who's really, really busy because they're not going to get it done. And then what do? Well, you work them through systemology. They go through the 7 stages. They capture the critical client flow and identify the 10 to 15 systems to start. They transfer it to the systems assign sheet. They add a little bit of extra detail, and then they start to meet with knowledgeable workers. They record those tasks getting done and they store it into a central location. They transcribe those videos, feed it into ChatGPT, and then start to further customize the output. The next 90-day sprint, they start working towards minimum viable systems. Minimum viable systems, depending on how much time and effort you give it, it's probably 2 sprints of 90 days. And then you work with them to build a culture of systems and talk about systems on team meetings and showcase system wins, celebrate when someone does something right, lead by example. So that's a lot of what I wanted to cover. I've caught us right up on time because the goal was to try and get us on at 2:30 here, and I'll be able to take a few questions towards the end if the AV works. But we've covered what is systemology and went through the 7 stages. We looked at a couple of case studies throughout. We talked about your identity. Really, that's a key part. Unless you actually believe in this, you're not going to stick with it. And when it gets hard, you're going to give up. And then it actually does more damage to your business if you give up part way, because then your team thinks, yes, we can't be systemized. We're too creative for systems. Systems work in other businesses, not in ours. Dave doesn't understand my business. My business is different. You don't know how busy I am, or the responsibilities that I have, or the tasks and the pressure I get from the team. And this can't be done. And then you'll reinforce that if you give up part way. This is not, you need to burn the bridges behind you. And this isn't necessarily all going to fall on your shoulders. The bit you need to lean into is changing your identity as a systems-driven business owner. And then you need to find the right person to help work with you to bring this into reality, the systems champion. So we covered quite a bit. That was just a lot of Dave sort of on a soapbox for 60 minutes. So I'm happy to open up. We can take some questions. I know we've got either type it into the chat. I'm happy to read those for those that are watching virtually. We've also got those in the room. Perhaps I'll hand back to Sean or the room to see what's the best way to take a few questions.
Appreciate that. We'll go to Heidi.
Hi, Dave. It's Heidi.
Hey, Heidi.
Some questions around how do you go about building a dashboard?
Yep.
Like, what's some methods or tools that you would use to build a dashboard? Yep.
Perfect. So simple is best, especially when you're starting out. Sean's going to have a bunch of templates that'll shortcut this. So that's the cheat code. That said, keep it simple. You don't want more than 10 to 15 numbers to start with. Use a spreadsheet. You don't need fancy software or anything like that. I would typically pick numbers that relate back to the critical client flow. So I would be thinking about how many leads did I generate? What's my conversion rate? How many new clients have I onboarded, or how long does it take for me to deliver that product or service? How many people either repeat or refer? They're just a handful of numbers, and you might choose some other numbers from some of the other departments. Really what you need to build, if you've not got a dashboard in place, is version 1, and you have to build up the muscle of consistently updating that dashboard and reviewing it. It needs to be someone's job. You create a process around pulling those numbers and getting them onto a dashboard, and then you need to have it as an agenda item, maybe once a month or every week, depending on what type of dashboard it is, to then review those numbers. So that way it becomes part of the system to capture it, but also to review it. And then from there, yeah, you'll learn to interpret and read the numbers. And when you're not happy with something, again, every problem is a systems problem. So then you can lean into, okay, well, what makes up that number? Okay, if we're recording how many leads we've got, well, what are the systems that influence how many leads we're getting? And are they firing correctly? Do we need to add new systems in? And that's when you start to work through that process.
Is it a thing where you can use Zapier or other things to get like so no one has to do it? It just does it automatically?
You can. Some CRMs, depending on sort of the level that you've got, like a HubSpot might even do it automatically and pre-populate a lot of the data into a dashboard. That said, though, if you're just getting started, do it manually and have someone responsible for those numbers, because something happens when someone has to enter that number in and they know there is a target and you're reviewing that and you're discussing it. It's someone is going to take ownership. Whereas if it's all just squirted in by Zapier and automated, like these numbers should be KPI related to KPIs and important drivers in the business. So by doing it manually, it helps someone take more responsibility.
Any other questions from the room or from online? I haven't seen any things below. No, all good. All right. Well, thank you, Dave. Really appreciate your generosity with the books and you donating your time to support our group once again. Thank you so much. I want to give you a massive round of applause to Dave Jenyns. Thank you.
Thank you.